Welcome to TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my cohort and commentary, Ashton. And this is our NXT review. And this is the go-home show before TakeOver Brooklyn 3 this Saturday. And I gotta say, this was one of the better TakeOver go-home shows, if for no other reason, because we actually got content tonight. We weren't bombarded with video packages. We got, I think, like one video package, maybe two at most. That was it. I feel like in prior TakeOvers, maybe it's just me, but I feel like some TakeOvers, it was like, or some go-home shows, it was nothing but video packages, very little actual substance for that show. And we got a quality main event in Strong versus McIntyre on top of that. So, yeah, I'd say as far as go-home shows go, this is on the better end of the spectrum. And even as a general episode of NXT, I quite enjoyed it. Partner, what'd you think of it?
Yeah, man, I thought this was a pretty decent show. You know, it wasn't great. It wasn't horrible. It was kind of down the middle for me. This was, I would say, for a go-home show, it was a little bit on the disappointing side, but it was still relatively enjoyable. I can't really complain too much. I think the most disappointing point on this show was the fact that it just kind of ended without anything being done about the very last thing that happened that we'll talk about in a little while. But yeah, it was okay. It was, you know, it's kind of gotten to the point that that's just kind of where I am with NXT lately. It's just kind of, you know, sometimes they have their really good shows that are like, oh yeah, this was really good and enjoyable. But most of the time it's just like yeah, I mean, it was fine, but whatever.
You know what, on that sentiment, because I want to respond to that, let's get right into our first segment, Heat of the Night. And I really don't have any Heats of the Night, but there are two nitpicks I want to just kind of air out, one general and one specific. The general nitpick is that I feel like NXT tonight blue-balled me at least twice, and maybe that's more on me and not them, but you talk about the main event segment, that was definitely one. And then, and this will even get into my specific nitpick, I really didn't care for the finish of Ruby Riott versus Billie Kay tonight.
Yep.
You know, I felt like that made Billie Kay look kind of awful. And I love both members of the iconic duo, but clearly in my mind, and Ashton, I know you're a big fan of them as well, so maybe you can stop me if I'm getting a little carried away. But this kind of tells me that they see Peyton as the more credible of the two members in terms of booking. Because,
I mean, to be fair, we can kind of look back at the four-way between these two, Asuka and I want to say it was Nikki Cross also involved in that.
Yeah.
Peyton got a hell of a lot more offense on Asuka than Billie did, so I think you probably are right there.
Yeah, and see, I wasn't even present for that match because I remember that was when I was going through my horrendous mic issues. So, yeah, like I feel like they feel like Peyton is the more in-ring performer of the two, which is crazy because they're both phenomenal in-ring performers. But
well, yeah, I actually had a comment regarding the in-ring work here. This match felt like they were slowed down quite a bit for some reason. Like maybe it was like lack of preparation, or they just don't have good chemistry with each other, or what. But this match felt a lot slower than other matches that I've seen both of these girls in against other girls. So,
for sure.
You know, like I've seen Billie in matches that were better than this against other people. I've seen Ruby in matches that were better than this against other people, but against each other, something that just wasn't clicking here. There were a few cool moments that I'm sure we'll talk about when we actually review the match, but since we're talking about negatives, this match really didn't click for me. It felt very slow. And like, even like with Ruby, it felt like she was like doing this weird like trot between her spots where like she wasn't running full speed and it was like she was holding back. So I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, again, the more specific nitpick here, and then I'm going to bring a full circle back to my general nitpick, did not care for the finish of this at all. That kick was out of nowhere. I fully expected Billie to kick out, and when she didn't, I'm like, that's not the best look. And then to bring a full circle to my general nitpick about the blue balls, metaphorically speaking, you know, you have Peyton Royce get on the mic and cut a pretty, you know, average promo, you know, you'll never be iconic. But I was waiting for Peyton to lay down the gauntlet to Ruby for TakeOver and say, well, you beat one of us, but there are two iconic members of this duo, and, you know, how about you and me do it at Brooklyn, which would have been interesting, you know, having two women's matches on this card. But nothing happened, so what that tells me is this is probably going to be the post-TakeOver Brooklyn matchup, which, I mean, if that's the case, that's fine, I guess. But yeah, that was very, very weird how that was all handled tonight. And yeah, there are a few things though that I'm really happy about with NXT that I can't wait to talk about here. But I just wanted to air out my grievances. Do you have any, seeing as how this is a middle of the road show for you?
Really, I think my biggest problems were pretty much the same as yours. I enjoyed pretty much everything else. I would really, I mean, since they hyped it on this show, I would really like to just kind of talk about how little I care about AOP versus Sanity, and apparently neither does NXT because all that got was a video package on this show.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, that's like, other than the finish to the main event and like you bringing up Billy losing to Ruby in the way that she did, that's really the only other complaint I would have. Everything else I thought was solid though.
Yeah, there's one thing that I loved about tonight's episode that I can't wait to get into. But with that said, let us get right into our NXT review. And we open up with the contract signing between Asuka and Ember Moon. And here's another thing too, bro, since we just got out of our Heat of the Night gear. And this is a very petty one, which is why I didn't include it in the formal section. But I really could not stand the Full Sail crowd during this. But that also turns into a positive because I really liked how Ember Moon handled that crowd, because there were certain members like heckling her, and they seemed very pro-Asuka.
I mean, really, is there a more obnoxious thing for a crowd to do than to heckle somebody who's trying to give an intense promo and not doing poorly at it? Like, I would understand if this was like Bayley out there trying and failing to be cool and intense. We're talking about Ember Moon here, and this was arguably, I would say, her best promo in NXT to date, and they were still heckling the shit out of her. Like, get over yourselves and let these people do their damn jobs.
Yeah, dude, I was getting annoyed, but again, I have to commend Ember not pulling a Charlotte and just cutting the promo.
Well, I mean, and to be fair, not pulling a Bayley either, because we saw Bayley on a recent episode of Raw being like, oh, and to all the people not booing me right now, like, yeah, that's the worst possible way to handle that situation.
Yeah, Ember was very professional, focused on the story. And you know what, bro? I smiled a little bit with you saying, without me prodding you two, that you felt this was her best promo to date, because I think Ember's finally starting to get in a groove a little bit. Because I loved it.
I don't want to go that far. There was a spark of it. There was like this was like when you're watching a video of a football player and they make that one big play and you're like, okay, that's what they're capable of. I just need to see more of it. And see, what I felt like here with Ember. Like, this promo felt to me like early AJ Lee promo work, and early AJ Lee promo work was good, but it took her a while to really hit a stride and start cutting like really some of the best female promos that we've seen in the last decade. But Ember's not there yet. She's showing signs of it. She's got something, but she doesn't have it yet.
And see, here's my thing. Why I even brought up on my end that I felt like she's starting to get in a groove. I didn't want to make it seem like she's the end-all be-all yet, but why I said she's starting to get into a groove is because I was either last week or 2 weeks ago where she had the confrontation with Asuka, and she had the line, you know, you always say nobody's ready for Asuka, but it's Asuka that's not ready for Ember Moon, and then she lays her out with the total eclipse and doesn't touch the title. And I thought that whole segment was very well done on her end as a babyface.
But I feel like I also disagreed with you on that. Like, I said, like, yeah, that was a good line, but the promo itself wasn't good.
And see, I felt like, so you and I, then, it really is just a matter of disagreement between you and I, because I did enjoy the promo as a whole. I enjoyed her mannerisms, her body language, and then I felt like she followed it up here with the contract signing. All things considered, though, whether you and I are at different places with her evaluation, I do agree that she can get better. Certainly. She could certainly get a lot better, but I think she's finally starting to figure it out just a little bit, which is very comforting. But yeah, I appreciated the intensity. I appreciate that she didn't give in to Full Sail, who I wanted to fucking smack. And Asuka did a great job being intense herself, but speaking in her own native tongue, you know, kind of healing it up like, oh, you're not going to know what I'm saying to her.
I love how, like, when Asuka speaks Japanese, it sounds different than every other Japanese speaker that we hear, because, like, when Nakamura and Hideo do their Japanese stuff, you can hear, like, oh, that's Japanese. Like, it sounds like Japanese to me. But when Asuka goes on these angry Osaka Japanese like rants. I do not recognize her accent or her language at all, and it just sounds like she is just angrily yelling like a freaking schizophreniac doing like word salad in a made-up language that nobody else knows. Like, I just because I've never had exposure to this Osaka brand of Japanese before, it sounds crazy. And I absolutely love that because she does sound different than everyone else on the roster, including the guys, regardless of gender. Like, she sounds so different from everyone. And the crazy thing is, like, her accent slash the dialect that she speaks, I mean, she's still Japanese. She still does speak the Japanese language. It's just the Osaka variation of Japanese that's very different than your more traditional Tokyo Japanese.
Yeah, for sure. I really enjoyed this contract signing. I know contract signings have kind of become like, the go-to kind of lazy booking. But you know what? I think if you get the right competitors in there, it's like, all right. I see what you're doing. I can appreciate it.
Well, I mean, I'll say this. I feel like this was the best contract signing that we've had since Asuka Bailey.
Yeah, for sure. And I like that it didn't devolve into physicality, like the stare down they had with the title in the middle. Like, there's your promotional image right there.
Yeah.
So really good shit.
And it's been over a year since that. So I mean, we've had 4 or 5, maybe even 6 takeovers since Asuka Bailey. And for me to be saying, and they do a freaking contract signing for every women's championship match at a takeover ever. So for me to be saying that this is the best one since Asuka Bailey, that isn't just me saying like, oh, this is the best one in a few months. Like, no, this is the best one in a year to a year and a half.
Yeah, for sure. And gotta commend both women, but I'll have plenty more to say about this match when we do our TakeOver Brooklyn 3 preview predictions tomorrow. Cannot wait for that. Always love doing preview predictions, but for the meantime, I've got nothing else to say, so unless you do, we can move on.
All right, let's move on. Up next, we had a look back to earlier today when Lars Sullivan entered William Regal's office as William Regal was finishing up a crazy story about, I think he said something about some woman was running away from something and she ended up marrying Robert Plant or something like that. I don't know. But Lars Sullivan goes into Regal's office and says that he just wants one more tag team match. He wants one more chance. And Regal says, I don't want you beating down your partner in the middle of the ring. And Lars hears that and he's like, okay, I see you. I won't. I promise. I promise that exact thing won't happen. And Regal said, all right, fine. You got your match. And then we have our match between the Street Profits and the team of Lars Sullivan and Chris Silvio.
Okay. You want to go first on this, or should I?
You sound really loud. I think you might have moved your mic a lot closer to your mouth.
No, I didn't. I don't know.
Okay, then don't do anything. Don't change anything. I'm just going to turn you down manually because, it sounded like you were peaking just saying that right there. So, anyway, what were you asking me?
I was asking, do you want to go first on this, or should I? Because I have quite a bit to say on this, but I don't want to dominate the discussion. If you have quite a bit you want to say yourself.
Go.
Sweet. Okay, here's how I'm going to do this, because we already talked about the Street Profits extensively last week, and to be quite honest, I'd have all the same notes this week, so I'm not going to bore you guys with that. Instead, I'd rather talk to you about how much I fucking love Lars Sullivan. I have been loving this ever since it started, and to be quite honest, if he was on NXT on a more consistent basis, he'd make my 5v5 for NXT, and I don't think he'll make the cut because we're doing that video next Thursday, but I have been loving what they've been doing with him. I love that, the intensity, the look. I was even thinking to myself while you were talking, like, this guy's the physical manifestation of my emotionally abusive personality. He's just, like, all off the rails. And I love, too, the moment that him and Montez Ford had in this match where I don't even know what Lars screamed at Montez. Like, might have said, like, come at me or hit me or something like that.
No, he yelled, get away from me.
And then Montez was like, no. And he ran all the way to the other corner. So that was great. Montez once again showing that personality. Street Profits win with the double team. That's already growing on me very quickly. I love it. That frog splash by Montez is gorgeous to me. And then getting back to Lars, who I really want to talk about here, and who, by the way, shout out to our good friend and TWitWoW fan, Anthony Dolan, who is a huge Lars Sullivan fan, and I think he still is. Lars Sullivan looks like he's just about to blow a gasket. Like, I can't believe this happened again. And I think that he's going to attack Chris, but he doesn't. He goes outside, he grabs him. He's like, get out of my way! Get out of my way! And he's carrying him to the back. Turns out he takes him all the way outside, literally outside the arena, and he brutalizes him there, and he Uranagi slams him in a trash can. It was magnificent. I've said before in past reviews, especially recently, how I used to love like old school NXT when we first started covering it because of acts like Bo and Adam Rose, who I can't even remember what his other gimmick was anymore that I used to Leo Kruger. Yeah, Leo Kruger. Gimmicks like that. Lars, to me, fits perfectly in that era, and I hate that he's in this era because I can't really gauge how far he's going to go.
Yeah.
But I love the look. I love how he's approaching this character because even in the past, and I wish they would have kept doing it, but maybe they didn't want to beat a dead horse. So for once, I actually applaud WWE's restraint. The first time he attacked a tag team partner, they had a .com exclusive where he's in the trainer's room and he's like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, man. I don't know what came over me, but it'll never happen again. I promise." Like, this guy really is like that abusive douchebag you can't leave a relationship in. Only except he's a wrestler and the relationship is tag teams. I don't know when the bulb's going to go off in his head that he should really be doing singles, but I love it. Like, I haven't tired of it yet, especially because it's been so spaced out. You know, because it's NXT and not a Raw or SmackDown, it's not like we're getting hit with the same thing every week with a different partner. So, yeah, I really just want to take this space rather than talk about the Street Profits, where my review would be full of redundancies. Really just to put the spotlight on Lars Sullivan. I fucking love this dude. I love the interaction he had with Regal. Like, Mr. Regal, I understand. I promise I'll be good. Like, it really was. I'm thinking of, look, baby, if you just give me one more chance, I promise I can change, all right? You don't have to change the locks. Look, I just promise I can change, all right? Like, it's such a mind fuck, but it works. So, yeah, I'm going to come out and say this is the highlight of the show for me. And this is coming from a guy that's a huge Ember Moon fan that's been loving Roddy's face work. This, to me, was the best of NXT tonight for me. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but I love what they're doing with this dude. So I really want your thoughts now that you know how jazzed up I was about this.
I find it so funny that this is kind of where we are, where you and I are both praising the hell out of these big, intimidating monster types, despite the fact that we're kind of, we're internet wrestling fans, and there's a certain stereotype that comes along with that, where like you hate all the big guys, you love all the indie guys, all that kind of stuff. You cheer for all the bad guys, you boo all the good guys, all that stuff. And the cheering for the bad guys really is more you than anyone, but still, yes, we both really do kind of break that mold because we were both big Braun Strowman fans before he even made his debut on the main roster. We knew about him when he was still Braun Strowman.
Yeah.
And now this guy we've been aware of because of like different pictures and stuff where like there used to be a rumor that he would debut on the main roster the way Strowman did. I'm sorry, I messed up. He used to be Braun Strowman, like without the R. He used to not have the R. He used to just be Braun Strowman. And we were both excited for him to be on NXT, and he skipped NXT, and we both kind of were like, oh, well, if he skipped NXT, this Dylan Miley guy might also skip NXT because he had all these like random pictures on Twitter and like Instagram and stuff where it was him and other people, including Braun himself. And he was always posing with his hand up, and he had these gigantic, like Big Show-esque hands. And we're like, this guy could be an attraction. I like him. Let's see what he does. And we were both thinking he might debut on the main roster. And we were also thinking he might debut with the gimmick of being Bruno Sammartino's son. You remember that one?
Yeah, I think I do remember that rumor. Holy shit, yeah.
Yeah, so we've been aware of this guy and rooting for this guy for a long time. And basically now It's just a matter of waiting until he gets the singles push that we know he's going to get, the same way it was with Braun. Because with Braun, when he showed up on the main roster, we both freaked the hell out because we both knew who he was, and everyone else was like, who is this guy? And even like in our chat and in comment section, and then like even on Reddit, people were like, who the hell is this guy? He didn't do NXT. I don't recognize him. And you and I were just like, oh, let's educate the masses. And we did, kind of. I mean, WWE did it before we could, and they have more outreach than us. But still, we did what we could. We used what outreach we have to let people know, like, yeah, this guy's going to be great. And now this guy, this Lars Sullivan, formerly known as Dylan Mile and Dylan Miley, I think he's going to be great as well. I think he is going to be another one of those Braun Strowman types where he just wrecks and destroys everything, and it's a slow burn where, you know, for the first little while, it's just the Strowman-style squashes where he just beats guys in 30 seconds, and everyone's just like, oh, is this all this guy can do? And then in his first real match, he proves, like, he's actually pretty decent. He can actually go. Like, he's not freaking AJ Styles or anything like that, but he can put on a good enough big man match to tell a compelling story and get people into it and serve his purpose as an attraction. And in the long term, I think we could see this guy winning the NXT championship as early as 2018, if not 2019 for sure.
God, I hope you're right. Because, you know, even with the guys that I love are coming in, like, I'll even say now.
Well, and that's assuming that he doesn't get called up before then, because there's a good chance that, I mean, we saw Strowman got called up without even having any appearances on NXT television. We could see Lars Sullivan get called up before he even gets a major singles push in NXT. That's within the realm of possibility.
Oh, for sure. It's just, I really hope that your assessment of him being like an NXT champion at a certain time is true, because here's where I'm at, if I'm really being truthful. A lot of the guys that have made their name in like Ring of Honor or New Japan, like, I love and I support, and if this is the move they want to make, of course I support them and I'm happy for them. Like, the biggest case right now, Adam Cole's the next big one. In fact, a lot of people are saying he'll be the in-the-crowd performer at TakeOver Brooklyn 3. I
mean, I've heard possibilities of him or Leo Rush, or both Adam Cole and Leo Rush.
See, now, Leo Rush I would mind less for the point I'm about to make. I chose Adam for a reason, because his profile is high. He has done a lot of stuff. And to me, it's like, I don't mind him being in NXT, but I want guys holding the NXT title that reflect what NXT was originally about. Like, these are the people we're making for our next generation. And to kind of tackle your bigger point, I'm so glad you brought this up. You know, it's funny because I think in a lot of ways you could still say that this era of wrestling belongs, you know, to the cruiserweights or junior heavyweights, if you prefer, you know, people that can do the flippy shit and are very technically sound, like Saber and Skrull and all them. And that's true. And I adore those guys. But it really
I love, though, that you point out, like, oh, the flippy shit, and then your first two names off the top of your head are submission-based wrestlers.
Right, because I also mentioned technical stuff, but for the flippy shit, like, you know, Ricochet being
Will
one.
Will
Ospreay, you know,
Dragon
guys
Lee.
like Dragon Lee. But I love that we're slowly seeing a reclamation from big men. But here's where I qualify that. They're big men with personality, and I love that. They're not just guys that are big and their size is the character. Like, I love that Braun can
That's
just
a great point. Yeah, to me, like, there are some traits that if you just have a certain amount of, like, a few different traits, you don't need to be the best at everything if you're really good at certain things. Like, if you have the size, which kind of goes along with the whole look thing, so let's just say the look, which includes size. So if you have the look, if you have the in-ring ability, if you have the charisma, and if you have the talking ability. If you have like 2 or 3 of those 4 traits, you're in good shape. If you have all 4 of them, you're Stone Cold Steve Austin, you're The Rock, you're Hulk Hogan, you're John Cena, etc. But if you have 2 or 3 of those, you're good. And to me, Lars Sullivan has the look, and it seems to me like he has the charisma. So if he can add the talking, which, I mean, he's not a bad talker yet. We haven't seen him really cut any true blue promos that weren't scripted or in front of a camera where he was able to do multiple takes yet, like we've seen with Braun. So Braun already has those 3 checks. And Braun, I mean, hell, Braun's closing in on that 4th check, because if he manages to put on some great matches between now and like WrestleMania, you know it's going to be him versus Brock at Mania, and that match could be a 4.5 kind of star match if they do it right. So, I mean, hell, Braun is on his way to being in that like Hogan, Austin, Rock territory. But this guy, Lars, he's got 2 of the check marks, I think. It seems like he's at 2. He's kind of like in the middle as far as the talking goes, because we don't know if he's good or bad. It seems like he's good, but again, we haven't seen any live stuff from him. And then, I mean, obviously the wrestling is something we'll find out over time.
Yeah, you know, I think, well, first of all, just to address the Braun thing very quickly, I've even heard rumors that they might shotgun Braun Lesnar for No Mercy, because that is a Raw pay-per-view this year. And if they do that, I'll have plenty to say about Braun Strowman come SummerSlam preview predictions, and that'll be Friday, folks. But to keep focus on Lars, I just love, and see, when I mention big guys with personality, and that's how it makes this era distinct from, say, when Andre roamed the earth, really the only big check mark against that, even I think he's finding his voice, would be Big Cass. And I don't even think his promos have been bad. I just worry that he's going to slip into that I'm 7 foot tall kind of generic thing there. But with Lars, I just love, again, the unique twist of, yeah, I'm big, I'm bad, I destroy people, but I oscillate between doing it in the moment and then after the fact, I'm this articulate, remorseful, emotional, almost like a gentle giant, but the gentle giant isn't even in a babyface way, it's in a deceptive way. And I really dig that. I dig that this guy has an anger issue, and that's kind of his defining thing, rather than, oh, I'm violent because I can be. No, I'm violent because everybody else pisses me off. You know, it works. And I'm hoping that it can show in promos in the future, especially to your point, in front of a crowd, that he can continue to be unique. Because, yeah, like right now, as a guy that doesn't even show up that consistently, he's one of my favorite things on the product. So I'm really glad we had this extended conversation about him and big men in the business right now, because I'm loving this crop between him and Strowman. And Cass, I wouldn't even say I hate Cass yet. He's kind of like...
Dude, I was going to say, if you would have seen the kind of heat that Cass was getting on Monday, you would be a lot more positive about him right now.
And you even told me on Skype, because, I was having issues like on Raw, but you were even saying, like, it's nuclear heat. It's nuclear heat. And I really should go back and find either a clip or whatever and watch it, because I do think Cass is finding himself. So I'm not even like throwing him into the sea. I feel like, yeah, big men are really kind of roaring back in WWE's terms, and they're being written so well. Who would have thought that in the days of heel Mark Henry, that could have been foreshadowing for the kind of big men we could potentially get in the future? And then you get one of my favorite acts in Braun Strowman, and the rest, as they say, is history. So yeah, Lars is coming in at the right time, I think, and how far he goes is up to him and is up to creative. So we'll see. But I got nothing else to say about this, so unless you have anything to add, we can move on.
I have nothing left to add, and I guess we can move on. Up next, did we mention that that these guys had the match, the Street Profits and Lars and Chris Silver?
Oh yeah, I just mentioned that Street Profits won very quickly, and that Lars took...
Oh, and yeah, you did say about Lars slamming him in the garbage can. Okay, so then we can move on. We got the recap from last week, the iconic duo making fun of Ruby Riott, or as they prefer to refer to her as, Wooby Wyatt. And then we got the match, Billie Kay versus Ruby Riott, which, again, I mentioned earlier, it felt slower paced than I would expect between these two to me. But Billie did have some nice offense. She had a pretty good discus lariat, which really, other than the most recent one that I praised from Natalya, just blows most of Natalya's discus lariats out of the water. She also hit a pretty awesome variation of Eat Defeat on Ruby that I think one of the commentators called a variation on a stunner, so whatever. But Ruby wins with the kick to the head that she literally, like, that was the first move we ever saw her use in NXT.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay, nice to see where Billie Kay is on the...
Are we maybe getting, like, a subtle story that we haven't caught on to yet, that Billie Kay is, like, consistently, like, prone to concussions?
You know, I was wondering that, dude, because of the whole, they brought up the Total Eclipse controversy on commentary.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know. That, if they're going there, that makes me very uneasy. Like, I think that even goes beyond Natalya farting territory for me, because if we're talking about somebody being prone to concussions, knowing the brain science that's coming out and knowing the culture that story would be told in.
Well, I mean, yeah, the stupid thing is, like, you're saying this girl is prone to concussions, but what you're really doing is opening the Pandora's box to the actual fact that everyone who pro wrestles is probably also very prone to concussions and has probably dealt with dozens of concussions over their lives in the ring. Like, taking a bump is probably enough to cause a very, very small, unnoticeable concussion, and that shit builds up.
It does. And here's my thing, and I'm not trying to be caustic or anything. I'm just being straightforward, which is why we're here. It's funny to me that WWE, if they would, now I don't think it is, because you initially said, like, is it something we're missing? I wouldn't look that much into it, but if on the off chance you're right and we are missing something here and this is what they're doing, that's really fucked up given WWE's history with concussions in their own backyard. Like, do you really want to go there? I don't think you would. I think that's very poor PR, but that's just me. Did not like that Billy got done like this, and Peyton's promo, while fine, was a bit awkward, I guess, on my end because I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, and it never did. I mean, Ashton, what do you think about all this?
Yeah, I mean, my whole thing is I'm a big fan of the Iconic Duo. I like Ruby Riott, but I want more from her. We were moment a couple weeks ago where Ember was talking about her attempt at getting back to the NXT Championship. Ruby came up to her and she was like, listen, you had your chance. Nikki had her chance. I haven't. I'm preparing for my match with Asuka. And then we got them against each other and Ember won, and we haven't really, like, there's no progression with it, Ruby at all. It's like Ruby feels like always the bridesmaid, never the bride of the NXT women's division to me.
Yeah, and see, that's another point where I was kind of had mixed feelings about this, because I don't want to be a Debbie Downer at the same time, right, and kind of cheapen Ruby's win, because I was happy to see her get a win. I think she needs to win, build her up. It's a shame you had to build her up like this, which I feel like only elevates her so much and takes Billie Kay down a good bit, given the nature of how she lost. And then again, going back to Peyton's promo, like, it was fine, but it really didn't go anywhere. It's just like, oh, you're still an ugly.
I was expecting Peyton to be like, oh, lightning only strikes once, but it won't strike twice. I'll see you at TakeOver, or something that leads us to a match between Peyton and Ruby, which I think might be what they're building to. You know what? If I had to guess, that's probably going to be one of the matches that gets recorded before TakeOver that gets shown on the episode of NXT following TakeOver.
Yeah, and that's what I said earlier too. Watch this be the post-TakeOver Brooklyn 3 NXT main event, or just one of the matches, which, I mean, is fine because, on those shows,
it probably won't be the main event because, there's, unless it's a women's championship match, the women rarely main event NXT.
That's true. Although the only reason I say that is because traditionally on those shows, it's a shit ton of Fallout packages.
Oh, yeah.
Shit like that. So I don't even know. I just feel like I love the Iconic Duo. They have so much potential. Just like I thought Sanity had so much potential. And it's like, I feel like.
You know what, dude? I'm going to say this. If we get more than just like one or two people on the following list that I'm about to run off on the post-Taker episode of NXT, I think you and I should just review that show and then do our 4-week hiatus.
Right.
Or maybe not even 4, maybe 3 this time, because I'm expecting the whatever TakeOver features the Dusty Classic to happen in like October, maybe even November. So that'll be a little bit closer. But yeah, like if we get, okay, so here's the list. Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Cole, Bobby Fish, Peyton Royce, and Ruby Riott.
Yeah. Yeah. If we get a few of those acts to show up actually on the product and not in any kind of Fallout crap, I would definitely.
And by the way, also I want to add in TM61.
Yes. God, when are they going to return? It has to be soon, I would think. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about this. Unless you have anything you want to add, we can move on.
All right, then up next, we've got our AOP versus Sanity video package, which, again, I don't care, and you're not going to get me to care. Sorry, NXT, but I'm probably going to be paying more attention to the TWitWoW chat during this match than the match itself. And then we got our main event of the evening, Roderick Strong versus Drew McIntyre.
Again, a solid match. I love, and see, I do wonder, like, I'm in a weird place with McIntyre. Because on one hand, the way he looks and the way he wrestles, I'm like, wow, that's a really aggressive, like badass. Like I do get heel vibes, but he's been cutting such great fiery promos. I'm like, okay, I can see why you have him as a babyface. So he's in a weird place with me, but I am enjoying what he's doing. And then Roderick, I don't know. NXT has this magical touch where they can make me care about babyfaces. Because when Hideo was babyface, I cared about him. And they've really made me care about Roderick more than I ever have. And we've seen his ROH work and his PWG work. So I got to commend him for that. This match was fine. It was entertaining. It's just, I think a problem I have with it and maybe a lot of my criticisms tonight are on me. And I've got to be open about that. And I've got to be honest about that possibility. But narratively, it doesn't make any sense that you go through all this trouble making this match. And really, I even kind of question Bobby Roode's character, because why wouldn't you let them finish beating the shit out of each other? Why did you get, like, the hair trigger, so to speak? But he runs down, throws Roderick off the top rope. Drew's still in the Tree of Woe. He's stomping away. He continues on Roderick, goes back to him. Then with Drew, like, he's staring at the title, like, obsessed, I guess, at seeing his own reflection back in the title. Hits Drew with a glorious DDT and just does all of his stuff without any interruption. I enjoyed this main event, but again, narratively, it was lacking to me because I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I said,
dude, I was the same way. I was expecting Regal to come out and be like, listen, Bobby, if you want to fight these guys both so badly, then we don't want to wait. We're going to have a triple threat at TakeOver Brooklyn 3. And I would have popped. I would have been so excited if they would have added Roddy to the title match. And it just kind of goes off the air with the freaking, nothing. With Bobby posing. Like, that's right there. That's where the way to sell tickets. With Bobby Roode posing, standing tall as champion. That'll put asses in seats.
Now, here is the only discussion I feel like is worth having about all this. Because we've talked about Roderick Strong, you and I, on this show recently, and the fact that NXT did such a great job with the intimate video packages and the build. And, I've said repeatedly, and I know you've co-signed, that his build and the match they had, that was TakeOver worthy. Then we heard rumors about this triple threat, which may be true. And we've already kind of given our thoughts on that, where we feel like it's too late. But I guess my question to you is, if they are committed to giving Roddy Roode another TakeOver platform, another shot with its own build separate from everything, do you think they can really rehabilitate this and make people really care again and get that pop, or is the lightning still out of the bottle?
I think that they've lost their opportunity. They missed out on it.
Yeah, I come down on your side. I wouldn't say forcefully, because anything can happen. I'm still invested.
But to me, though, NXT and like the sort of the scene, the NXT title scene and stuff is moving so fast that for them to stop, turn around, and go backwards, going back to where Roddy was, would probably, I feel like the NXT crowd would turn on that. Like, really, you have to keep moving forward, and I think that Bobby is going to retain, and then his next opponent's going to be Black.
Yeah, it's such
and
a
honestly,
shame.
we might not even get that match until, December, January, honestly.
Right.
Yeah, because we've got the Dusty Classic, and I feel like traditionally, whatever TakeOver the Dusty Classic lands on is main evented by the Dusty Classic final.
Right. Yeah, it is.
So we might not even get an NXT title match on that show. So we might have to wait until December or January for our next TakeOver main event NXT World title match. And I feel like that would be Bobby versus Black. And depending on whether they pull the trigger on Black or not, if they do, that's cool. But if they don't, I think Bobby Gargano is the next match that they need to build to for NXT TakeOver New Orleans.
Yeah, it's an interesting, convoluted mess to me, because I do love Roddy and I kind of feel bad for him because I feel like it was his moment and they cast him out of the sun. But there are other guys though that I'm just as jazzed about. On the heel side, when we get a babyface champion, I think Andrade's on his way back. I hope. Patrick Clark, I'm keeping an eye on. Lars Sullivan, we had an extended conversation about him tonight. But given that we have
what? I'm going to add those two guys to my list of people I want to see on the post-TakeOver NXT. Lars Sullivan and Velveteen Dream.
Yeah, for sure. But given that we have a heel champion, I mean, the big guys right now, or the big guy, I should say, is Aleister Black. And it's funny to me, not that you were wrong, but it's funny to me that a line of argumentation used earlier in the show as it related to Lars Sullivan was a call-up, because that's the fear I have with Aleister Black every month. Because I feel like the guy's cooking on all cylinders. I don't know how.
Well, and the crazy thing with him is he's already been on a main roster show. He beat Kurt Hawkins on an episode of Main Event over the last couple months.
Exactly. So, like, with me, I've always got the hair standing up on the back of my neck. Like, okay, we're seeing Aleister on NXT. And, I mean, he has a match this Saturday that I cannot wait for with Hideo Itami. But,
yeah, like, that match, I mean, for all of the lack of build that they've done to the tag title match and the lack of interest I have in that and the main event, the world title match, the fact that Hideo versus Black is on this show is really like, that's like the cheat code, man. Like, the rest of this show could have been nothing, but you put that on this show and my interest goes from a 0 to a 6 immediately, and add in some of the other stuff that they have also on the show, and I'm going to be above a 6 for my interest tomorrow when we do preview predictions.
Sweet. I'm right there with you. And yeah, like, I look at Black, and again, because I have to look at baby faces, because with heels, and that's why I can't wait for a face to win the belt, because with heels, you could have Hideo get another crack again. Andrade's on the rise. Rude, of course, would have to get his rematch. I think there's a lot of potential there. But yeah, the biggest baby faces right now are Black and Gargano, but Gargano, I feel like, is taking the very traditional story. He's working his way up the invisible kind of hierarchy. You know, he beat Raul Mendoza in his first match. His match with Andrade this Saturday is only going to be his second. So he really seems to be, or the story seems to be, that Johnny Wrestling is running the gauntlet, which I'm cool with. But, you know, that's another one. And I'm just like, well, what about Roddy? Like, where does that leave him? Maybe he'll work a program with McIntyre down the road with McIntyre going heel. I don't know. But yeah, he's such a weird case, because it's like you had it and you let the lightning out of the bottle. And then you get a segment like tonight where it's like, oh, you could have gotten a lot of people on Roddy's side if Regal made restitution immediately, saying, oh, you stuck your nose in this match that was important to Roddy, and, you know, could have built momentum for McIntyre. You ruined it. You ruined it for everybody. So now we're just going to bring all those matches together because it's a triple threat this Saturday. That didn't happen. So I don't know. Like, I feel like NXT is doing a lot of good things, and that's why I like to heap a lot of praise on him. Again, Lars Sullivan being a big thing right there, and Street Profits, and et cetera, et cetera. But the things they get wrong, man, like, I can't ignore it. And it's just, I feel like the NXT title picture is kind of a mess right now. Hopefully, post-TakeOver Brooklyn 3, the house gets sorted. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the main event. So unless you have anything you want to add, we can just move on to our next segment.
Do it.
High spots and low shots. You know what? My low shot is, you know, I'm going to say McIntyre, because he competed in a match where commentary said it best. He really has nothing to gain. Roderick Strong had everything to gain. And, you know, he seemed like he was closing in potentially on a bit. Well, actually, no, he was on the defensive, so we don't even know if he was going to win. And he still gets the shit beat out of him by the guy he really should be focused on this Saturday. He got gloriously DDT'd. And
in a sense, Drew McIntyre got trapped here, because it really did feel like Bobby Roode laid a trap. He went out of his way to suggest that Roderick go through Drew before he can get to him. Drew fell for it. He bit it. He bit into it. He was like, yeah, do it. Let's do this. And rather than Bobby doing what I think Drew expected him to do, because it's what everyone should expect everyone to do, and letting this match go to an actual finish, Bobby went the next scummy step further, and he stopped the match by beating the shit out of Drew to give himself a tactical advantage on Sunday.
Yeah, it was a rough night for McIntyre, man. And going right in to my high spot, which they are going to be disparate. It's not going to be like our Lucha Underground review earlier tonight. My high spot, I got to make it Lars Sullivan, because it's rare that we see this guy anyway. And
I guess I'm not going to get a low shot tonight, huh?
Oh, I'm sorry. I completely bypassed that. Who's your low shot? And then I'll continue my high spot segments.
I mean, my low shot's Chris Silvio for obvious reasons. He lost the match and then got the hell beat out of him by
Lars Sullivan, my high spot. Well, look at that. It still works out. But yeah, Chris, I mean, that's perfect because we're probably never going to see the scrub again. And the one appearance he got demolished, literally thrown in the trash. We say that about so many people metaphorically, but when you could say it literally, kill yourself. So yeah, Lars Sullivan is my high spot. Again, we very rarely see the guy, but when we do, I love it. I think he's one of the more understated acts currently on the roster. I can't wait to see more from him and how much depth he has and like what evolution he's capable of. And yeah, just him throwing Chris Silvio in the trash was great. And can't wait to see more from Lars. So he is absolutely my high spot, no question.
I actually quite liked Chris Silvio. I saw a lot of charisma from him, but I mean, let's face it, low shots are for people who have shitty nights. And who had a worse night than the guy that lost a match and then got the shit beat out of him, right?
Exactly. But who had a high night for you? Who had a great night where it's like, yeah, I'm excited for TakeOver Brooklyn 3 this Saturday?
Well, believe it or not, it doesn't even have anything to do with Brooklyn because we're staying in the same exact match. My high spot is the Street Profits because they ran up against a team that had a ticking time bomb on it, and they managed to successfully evade said time bomb.
Yeah, not only did they
got so lucky that Chris Silvio decided that he was going to get a little for his britches and enter the match first, preventing Lars from even entering the match. And then the Street Profits went out of their way to prevent Chris Silvio from tagging Lars in. And in doing so, pissed Lars off even more, but he didn't even take it out on them. He took it out on his own partner. So they committed so many crimes against Lars Sullivan, and they didn't have to pay for it all. They just won the match and left.
Yeah, that was amazing to me. They got the win. They evacuated before detonation of the time bomb in Lars Sullivan. Yeah, you can't ask for a better night than that. And because, I mean, yeah, you could win, but it really doesn't mean much if you get the shit beat out of you. And they were able to avoid all of it. So that's an excellent pick.
And also, did you notice during all of the little clips that they show for the Street Profits vignette, it's always Montez Ford doing the cool shit. Like, oh, I'm going to dance on top of this NXT trailer. Like, oh, I'm going to do this crazy thing with my chain and it's going to be cool as hell. And in the meantime, Angelo Dawkins just standing around looking like he doesn't know what the hell to do with his hands.
And it's like, wow, Montez, you're so awesome. What about you, Angelo? Stirring it up.
Yes, curse of greatness, baby. Curse of greatness.
Curse of greatness. Get back in the fucking kitchen and mix the brownie mix, bitch.
Oh, no, I want brownies, you prick.
I had brownies earlier. Yeah, how does it feel that I ate something you don't even have? I'm sorry, that was way too aggressive. You didn't even do anything to deserve that. See, I am the Lars Sullivan of this relationship.
Just lashing out emotionally for no reason.
Now, look, I promise you I'll be better next time, okay? I just need one more chance. And
listen, John, I really don't want you to attack me in the middle of this show.
Well, you know what? Do better. When I tell you to tag me in, tag me. I'm sorry.
See, no, that was when you were supposed to say, I promise I won't attack you in the middle of the show anymore, and then attack me anyway, because it's the end of the show. You see what I did? You see what I did there?
Yeah, because you definitely ask for it a lot of the time, so you're right. That really should be my tactic. But regardless, how many more episodes until we get divorced? Find out. But
541 in. I don't think it's happening anytime soon.
Yeah, you're stuck with me. God, the emotional toxicity is off the charts. Send help, someone. But anyway.
No, I mean, I was actually looking the other day, and I looked to see how many of our 541 episodes of TWitWoW have been on YouTube. And as it turns out, it's like most of them.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, because like our first TWitWoW on YouTube, I want to say was like episode like 90 something or somewhere along those lines. Like I don't think we even hit 100 before we came to YouTube.
Yeah. So that's
I'm looking
crazy.
now again, and it was 158. So we're I mean, it was over 100, but it's still. I mean, we were at 158 when we first started on YouTube, so we're closing in on 400 episodes of TWitWoW on YouTube. It's pretty crazy.
The greatest podcast this shit website has ever known in its existence. Jesus Christ, why was that so hard? I'm gonna give my tongue a stern talking to. But in the meantime, do you have anything else to say about NXT tonight?
Nope.
All right, then. Well, neither do I. And anything I would have to say, you guys will just have to wait tomorrow for NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3 preview and predictions, where I'll get even more tongue-tied talking about Drew and Hideo and Aleister Black and all those guys. So until then, this has been NXT. This has been TWitWoW, the best wrestling podcast made for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans, on the web today. I'm John. That's my co-ordinator commentary. Guys, be sure to comment, subscribe, and like the video. The more likes you leave, the more likely we are to be the top search result for NXT reviews on YouTube. So please leave that like. You can find all the media that we and just TWitWoW as a whole are associated with in the description box. Both mine and Ashton's Twitter handles, the TWitWoW Facebook, everything's down there. Two particular pieces of media I want to just promote. First of all, the Teespring. We have a new t-shirt out. I'm not finished with you! Braun Strowman inspired, because the man's a fucking beast. And if you want to tell anybody or anything in your life that you're not finished with it, you're going to want to get that t-shirt. James, I know you'd look fucking dashing in that t-shirt telling me you're not finished with me in the bedroom. So be sure to get yourself a t-shirt. And if that's not really your style, guys, we've got plenty of other TWitWoW merch. Who could forget the iconic Kevin Owens, because he's a father, damn it, inspired t-shirt. We also have I'm a TWitWoW guy and I'm a TWitWoW girl, because we believe in that gender equality. And we also have Scum Squad merch, including mugs and stickers. So we have all the ways to show your true villainy deep inside. So yeah, guys, check out the Teespring. A lot of great offerings there. And I also want to plug the Patreon and particularly the Discord. We have so many members in the Discord now. It really blew up last month. It does my heart good to see that, because I think it's the best thing we're offering right now, even beyond Twitter. And, it allows you guys to talk with us really about anything at any time. It's only $3 a month. And the best part about it is, at $3 a month, say hypothetically you were a fan or you were a member of the Discord for 10 months. That's $30. You can cash in those $30 for a live reaction to a 3-hour show. So if you're a member of the Discord for less than a year, you can also get a live reaction out of us and just be able to tell your friends, yeah, that really amazing podcast? I contributed content to it because I'm amazing and rich, or at least middle class. So just think about that, guys. I think it's an amazing offering. But to give the rundown now on content, tomorrow, as you know, it's TakeOver Brooklyn 3 preview and predictions. I fucking love when we do preview and predictions, especially when it's a doubleheader with takeovers and a WWE pay-per-view. So Brooklyn 3 is tomorrow. We go live at 8 p.m., so be there for that. Then Friday, same time, going live at 8 p.m., we will be doing SummerSlam preview and predictions. Have a lot to say about this show, from, Big Cass to Baron Corbin Cena, to Nakamura, to, of course, the huge Universal Championship Fatal 4-Way. This is going to be, I think, a more conversational preview and predictions, at least on my end. I'm so curious what Ashton has to say, but I'm not going to have him say anything, because that's what we call hype. Fuck you, Mojo Rawley. And then, in the furthest, actually, no, even before that, next Thursday, our second installment of what's already become my favorite TWitWoW series, 5v5. We're doing it again, people. We're getting lists out again. We're reevaluating. We're restructuring. We're seeing who broke into our Fave 5 all across the board. It's going to be absolutely amazing. One of the most fun things I think we do. And again, it's only the second installment. That's going to be next Thursday. You'll get more information about that as we get closer to it. And
you look real jacked, baby.
Yeah, you know it. God, I'm so fucking sexy. This bicep, look at this vein. But you know what else you could look at outside of my veins is look at your own priorities. And if you've submitted questions for Q&A yet, because you have, folks, just a little over 2 weeks. 3 minutes to midnight, so I might as well say 2 weeks. August 31st, because Q&A now is the last Thursday of every month. Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Discord, if you remember. These are the mediums with which you can submit your questions. It is 4 questions per Q&A, and you can ask them to both of us or just to one of us based on the nature of the question. Get your questions in. I've already gotten a lot in. I'm going to record them sometime this week because I've been going through a lot lately. I'll finally be able to give them the attention they deserve. And for those of you that haven't submitted, get on it. It's a really fun experience. You get to own our lives for over 3 hours generally, and we talk about a huge variety of topics. So you're going to want to be a part of it. I think it's a really cool thing when they're like, they answered my question. They said Toronto. Yay. You want to be that guy. You want to be that guy. So get your questions in. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much. If you were here for Lucha Underground and NXT or just NXT or whatever it was, thank you for always supporting us, being here for us, watching the content. Love you guys. Have a good rest of your night. We'll see you tomorrow for TakeOver Brooklyn 3 preview and predictions. And until then, stay tuned.